Before we get started, if you've had an encounter, an experience, or just something unexplainable, shoot me an email with your contact information at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com. Hello, everyone. On this episode of the Cryptid Crew Podcast, I would like to welcome on Bigfoot Enthusiast, researcher, and one of the members of Squatch Hunters International, Jeb Scruggs. Jeb, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Very excited.
Good deal. Glad to have you on. Let's just kind of dive right into this if you want to. Tell us what got you, and what got you interested in the world of Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
Sure. So I think what I'd like to do is kind of introduce my team and give you a little bit of background on all of them, and then we can kind of dive into Jeb and Scruggs, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Sure. So as you had mentioned earlier, we're all Squatch Hunters International. We are an organization of like-minded individuals. When I say like-minded, not identical-minded, because some of us have very different ideas of what's out there and what's not out there. But we're a group that, we've known each other for years, going back to college time, and we've always had this interest in the unknown, into what's out there. So just in the last couple of years, we decided, hey, let's join our efforts together, and let's make sure that we're actually investigating what could, be out in the woods or, out in the ether. So, you said I'm Jeb and Scruggs. That's the long name. My friends call me Jeb, and you, my friend, I referred to as a friend. So I'm glad you called me Jeb earlier in the introduction. I've always been kind of an outdoorsman. So I'm out there hiking, I'm out there fishing, I'm out there foraging for mushrooms, I'm looking for frogs, and I'm trying to uncover those interactions between myself and nature. And Sasquatch is naturally one of those things that's out there. And based on an experience I had that I'll talk about in a little bit, that really kind of kindled my interest in the subject. But at Squatch Hunters International, we have 6 members. We have Gizmo. He's the Boston-based correspondent that on our Instagram, he's been snapping photos in East Africa. So he's been on an expedition for a few weeks to see what he can find out there. And he's a huge skeptic, if I can be completely honest. He doesn't believe anything he can't see with his own eyes. And also, he doesn't trust anything that he hasn't taken with his own camera. He's got his own fancy DSLR, and if it's not on his camera, he claims it's AI or something, and he says more investigation is needed. But it feels like that level of skepticism is needed when you have a group of people who all have a common goal, because while the true believers keep things fun and interesting, the skeptics kind of keep things grounded, and I think that's kind of a necessary thing. And I imagine, Mark, you're on a true believer side like me, right?
I'm in that camp.
And also on the team we have he refers to himself as True Believer Pacific Northwest. He actually manages our website. He gets the articles posted up there, our field reports, and he's a bit of an eccentric guy. He goes beyond the natural world. He likes to look into the paranormal. He's a huge paranormal enthusiast, and he's actually in Washington's Olympic Peninsula, so he's right in the mix. But he's real interested in like conspiracy theories, unknown parts of the map, that type of stuff. He's actually conducting some research right now on artificial intelligence. He's got an interesting couple of theories on that. You're familiar with artificial intelligence, obviously, but do you use it at all? Or are you familiar with it?
I have used it sparingly.
Sparingly. Yeah, so some of the stuff that gets fed back in those language models is really bizarre, for lack of a better word. So I'm interested to see what he comes up with out there. And we also have our Colorado-based correspondent, Boone Grizz. He used to be a huge skeptic. He's where Gizmo started at, but he's eventually turned to my side. He's a little more of a true believer. And he's been out there just trying to document things, and Colorado is just such a beautiful country. Even when he's not taking pictures of Sasquatch, he's just taking pictures of what he finds out there, and I'm always a little jealous the summer times. And then finally, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, it's absolutely a beautiful place, Rocky Mountains.
Oh, yeah. And we have a guy down in Florida as well. He's he's kind of looking for that. You hear about the skunk ape and the wampus cat. There's like a whole different breed of creatures down there to kind of adjust to the setting. And he actually had a very, very close encounter with something in the water. He's a big enthusiast. He's a sailor. But he actually got into an encounter where he lost a couple of digits on his right hand. So he didn't see what it was. He doesn't know what it was, but he's got to, he wants to find out what's out there because he still doesn't know what did that day. But
sure, absolutely. Yeah, I would be very curious to know, what took off part of my body, no doubt. What was he fishing or sailing or just?
He was wind sailing.
Wind sailing.
Yeah, this guy's a maniac. He'll go out there in a hurricane and see how fast he can go on a wind sail. But that's a story for another time. But I think I told you a little bit about myself. I'm just always out in the woods, and I want to make sure I'm getting the most out of that. And ever since I was a younger man, I would hear things out there, especially when the sun started going down. And I just can't help but wonder, that doesn't sound like something I've heard in the daytime, so what could that possibly be? And what really kind of inspired me to start getting into Sasquatch was a meeting I had with Ronnie LeBlanc. Ronnie LeBlanc is the author of Monsterland. He wrote the book on all of his adventures there in Leominster State Park in Massachusetts. And that's it's fairly close to where I am. I'm based in New England, so I'm very interested in going down there at some point. But at this talk he had, he was just talking about all the different signs of Bigfoot, and some of them I just would never have thought of. Like in your photos, if you see an orange orb, that could be some kind of indication of paranormal activity and portals and all this other, just this whole phenomenon I didn't know about. And after speaking with him and learning more about his project, his research, I decided I want to get in on this. I feel like we all have that one interaction with a researcher that makes us think, hey, I want in on this. Did you have an experience like that?
I did. Well, I guess I was younger. Maybe when I was 9 or 10 years old, I had a family from Montana move into our neighborhood, and I'll never forget, I was up at their house, and we were outside playing, and his mom was talking about a Bigfoot encounter that they had at their house or outside of their house, and that just kind of stuck with me. And then ever since then, anytime you could, even back then, you could get your hands on a book or a documentary came on TV, you were glued to it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They'll do it. Especially, when you're younger men, they hear about these things and it gets inspiring. You want to find out more.
Absolutely. Were you able to meet or discuss a lot with Ronnie?
Yeah, so he did his whole presentation, and I stayed behind after, and I kind of fanboyed a little bit. I got a book, I got it signed, I did all the things to make sure I documented it, and I took a photo, posted it on the Instagram, did all that. But I did have a chance to talk to him afterwards, and one of the big things that kind of stifled my research was the winter time here in New England. So if for anyone who doesn't know, New England winter is about, I want to say, 6 months out of the year where the ground is cold and frozen. There's snow banks. It's just overall an unpleasant experience to be outside. But in addition to that, I feel like Sasquatch activity completely drops off the map. I've heard theories that they're migratory. So they'll, head to warmer regions like yours in the winter, because frankly, I'd rather be down there in the winter too if I had to spend the time outside. But
Absolutely.
after speaking with him, he said, hey, we have had experiences before where there have been tracks found in snow. There have been individuals who have had eyewitness experiences where they've seen things happen in the winter, and kind of emboldened me. I'm like, all right, this is something I can do year round. I don't have to wait for the snow to melt and the weather to get nice. I can get out there. Now, that was just a small part of what we talked about. He obviously, he's a busy man. He was doing a whole tour, so I didn't want to take up too much of his time. But after speaking with him, I was just very much emboldened to get out there and see what I can find.
Right.
So,
I believe he is I was going to ask you this as well. I guess, are you in the camp of flesh and blood, supernatural, or something else? Because I believe Ronnie might be in the supernatural camp of some sort, because I've heard him talk about, like you mentioned, the orbs, and I've got something to say about that here in just a minute, but I was going to let you answer.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, he's very much in the supernatural world when it comes to the interactions with Sasquatch, but I am more grounded. I keep myself more in the flesh and blood realm, but I'm open. I'm very open-minded to it. Like, if I can experience that, like they're always talking about, like a telepathic experience, the portals, and all sorts of like things beyond our, five senses. And I hate to use the word agnostic, but I don't buy into it yet, but I want to. I want to see what kind of experience I can have, and I'd be willing to buy in if I can get a little more, a little more traction. But on the other hand, like I do have a little bit of buy-in with that type of stuff, because I don't know what you're going to say about the orange orbs, but I have heard, the possibility of Sasquatch not only being like a bit of a chameleon when it comes to blending in with his surroundings, but I've also heard about interference with electronic devices, and that doesn't necessarily have to be paranormal or supernatural. That very well could be still flesh and blood. You have, creatures in the ocean like electric eels. They are able to produce electric current. I don't see why it couldn't be possible for a flesh and blood Sasquatch to also interfere with electronic devices, with, not having to go into the, paranormal extra spectrum world.
Absolutely. I've heard several encounters where, cell phone or trail camera or something has been affected by something, like you mentioned, maybe possibly some type of interference. I guess infrasound is one thing, but, I guess it's lions and tigers also put out something to that effect to stun their prey that we can't hear,
Right. Right. I mean, the five senses, there's a whole spectrum of light we can't see. There's a whole spectrum of sounds we can't hear. And all you got to do is have an ambulance go off about a mile away and see how your dog reacts to know that there's a spectrum that we just don't comprehend.
Right. And going back to the orbs, I had a friend of mine mention this to me. This is prior to him being a believer. And I've mentioned this before, but he was with a group of friends camping, and there's an orange orb or light floating probably just above the first limb or so of a 15 or 20-year-old pine tree. Mm-hmm. And they were in a forested area. One of the guys followed the orb into the woods, and it disappeared. And they asked, he said, "What are you doing?" He said, I'm following this light. And maybe just a few seconds after the light disappeared, they heard crashing, like something was breaking limbs or sticks as it was running away. And he couldn't explain it. And, of course, I can't either. But,
right.
So that's he wasn't a believer. He was a skeptic. He didn't even really think about Bigfoot at the time. And, it was just something that he experienced, and he started diving into it a little bit and found more people that have had encounters like that.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that's that happened recently with our Boston correspondent in East Africa. He took a picture of, it was just a village that he was in, and it was like a very simple little hut, and with you could see some of the community members there, and there's this orange orb that appeared, and again, I'm agnostic with this type of stuff. So I said, hey, it's probably just a, lens flare or something. But when I was out the other night, I was out, it was Bear Brook State Park, actually, in central New Hampshire. And I was taking photos of just about every little weird thing I saw out there. And I thought I saw a shelter. It was like a bunch of sticks that had been turned into a very loose dome. And, the sun had gone down at this point, so all I had was my headlamp. And I took a photo of that dome, and I see this little orange orb just beyond the tree line. And that photo is on our Instagram right now, so you can look at it. And I couldn't explain that little orange orb. Like, I was in the middle of the woods, like very, very remote. Like, Bear Brook State Park is a very large stretch of, unincorporated forest. So I just had no way to explain what that little orange orb was doing back there.
Right. I saw that post on your Instagram account, and it's very distinctive. You can see the orb.
Right.
There's no doubt.
It's very far. It's small. Like, I don't know how big the orb was that you were telling me about with, with your former skeptic friend. But this thing, I mean, it was just like a little golf ball. I couldn't barely tell how big it was because of how far away it was.
Right. And I believe his was not much bigger. And it's hard to tell, too. It's maybe deceptive as far as how far away it was. Could you tell that at all?
Oh, not in the slightest. I didn't even notice it until I looked at my photos afterwards. Because, I snapped the photo, I looked down, I looked up, and there was nothing there. Because, like I said, it was nighttime, so all I had was a little bit of lamplight to identify what was around me.
Right. Let me ask you this. What do you think about tree structures? What do they mean, or what do you think they mean?
So a lot of the times, what I see are these dome-like shapes, and I think they're just temporary shelters. That's how I interpret it, at least, because especially here in New England, you get like a cold rain, or you get like snow in the winter. You got to have something between you and the elements. Like, I don't care how bundled up you are, how much natural fur you have. It is a cold and miserable experience to be in either freezing rain or snow, especially when the sun goes down. So I always interpret these structures as something to kind of break the elements, something to kind of give yourself a little reprieve from that. And I don't know if there is if there were leaves put up there before, and over time those leaves blew away. Like, I don't know if it was a more sophisticated structure before I get there, because I figure by the time I get there in spring, when it's starting to get nice, they're long gone, and this is just an old relic of the winter time.
Sure. There's been, besides, I guess, the structures to keep you out of the elements, have you ever seen any that may look like the X's or the tree bends, or the actual tree breaks, where you have seen twisted trees and then broke in half, possibly?
So this is a little different than what you mean, but I have seen basically trees that have been bent like way in the past, and I don't know what their purpose is, but they're like landmarks. Have you ever seen those before? Like, you basically what they do is they take a small tree and bend it when it's still a sapling, and it just grows in that shape. So you get like a huge maple tree, but it's got a hard right angle turn, so it goes right up, and it's almost like a chair because of how like hard that turn is. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah,
I've seen a few of those while checking out New England, but I never thought of documenting them. Next time I'm at that trail, I can think of at least two. There's one on Uncanunic that there's at least 3 distinct trees like that. And is it a marker for perhaps a game trail? Is it a grave? Like, is it a landmark for for a Sasquatch grave, and they planted the sapling and bent it so they'd be able to identify where it's at? I think that's also possible, because you've heard about folks who think they found like grave sites for these folks, and it's always out there. It's possible.
Yeah, I've heard different theories about the tree structures. Some, maybe as a marker, maybe as a territorial marker, possibly.
Yeah.
As well, or like you said, a game trail.
But you were talking specifically about, like, you said twisted branches, like broken branches. Is that kind of what you were getting at, rather?
Right, that and as well as the structures where you might see two trees that were broken half, small trees or what have you, that might have an X formation or a TP type formation as well.
Sure, yeah. So actually, this is something I found the other night. I did find an interesting pile like that. It was a bunch of broken, like, full-size trees, and broken trees, little branches. Like, it was a whole variety of different shaped, like, wood. And it was piled in this big, almost like an asterisk, like a big star shape. I haven't posted that one yet. I'll probably do that, either later tonight or tomorrow. But I did think that was very, I don't know, it just stood out. And I couldn't identify it, top of my head right there, but with what you said, I think that might have been something similar. I mean, it's a little more than an X. It's like I said, a couple of X's stacked on top of each other.
Right. There's no way that could be natural, I'm assuming.
It didn't look like it. Like, it wasn't if it was in a, like, ditch or a valley or, like lower ground, I could definitely see trees kind of naturally rolling down and causing a pile like that. But this was perfectly flat. Like, there wasn't any opportunity for water or rain to wash all this debris down like a channel, because a lot of the trails in New England are basically just like channels carved by water, and you're basically walking up rock pile after rock pile. Like, hiking up here is tough work. But this wasn't one of those situations. This was just, like I said, flat little spot, almost like a clearing.
Right. I can understand it, yeah, if it was a wash down from a creek or water or what have you. But yeah, like you said, if it's on flat ground or in an area where that's not possible, then it's something put it there.
Right.
And they have to have whatever put it there had to have thumbs.
yeah, exactly.
I know the area is, or a lot of the state's covered with the White Mountains, and from what I understand, I think it's about 750,000 acres or so. But tell us about the terrain and where you hike and explore for people that have never been in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. So the White Mountain area specifically is some of the most beautiful mountain I've ever found myself on. So the White Mountains are primarily in New Hampshire. They kind of go a little bit into the left, a little bit to the right into the neighboring states, but the primary range is right there in northern New Hampshire, and they're known as the Granite State. So there are huge granite deposits all over, and a lot of these mountains are primarily big old hunks of granite. So you start to climb these like, they're only 4,000 footers. I know, like, if you talk to a person from Colorado or the Rocky Mountains, they say 4,000 footer and they laugh at you because they're out there climbing 14,000 footers. But, as humble as our little mountains might be, you go through it, and in the summertime, it is just the most beautiful emerald green as far as you can see. You get to the very top of the mountain, and they have these granite domes, and you just stand on one of them, and you just look and see just God's creation as far as you can see. It's a real beautiful time up there. And what I often do is I'll go out there and I find these hiking trails, and I try to do my best to get off the beaten path to see what I can experience out there. But the terrain is just gorgeous. It is a beautiful place to visit. It's a beautiful place to live, and would highly recommend doing yourself a favor and doing some hiking in the White Mountains.
That sounds like a bucket list for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you this, Jeb. You had mentioned, we had talked just previously, just a little bit before this, but tell us about your experience you had while you were hiking.
Oh, yeah.
And where it was at, and just go into detail about that a little bit.
Sure. So this was in the town of Bethlehem, New Hampshire is where I was staying that weekend. It was middle of May, and me and my wife had decided to, have a nice weekend trip. It happened to be, Jeb's birthday, so I got to I got to pick what we did. We were looking for Sasquatch, as much as she might not have been excited about that. so they went
awesome.
to Bethlehem. Yeah, went to Bethlehem, and there's a nice little inn. We stayed there, and we were hiking the Twin Mountain region, which it's a pair of mountains just north of the Presidential Range. So the largest mountains in New Hampshire are the Presidential Mountains. You got Mount Garfield, Mount Lafayette, Mount Washington, obviously. I don't know if you've heard of Mount Washington at all, but the absolute worst weather in the world takes place there. And that's without exaggeration. The coldest weather happens on Mount Washington. Like they have a weather station up there, and the wind gets into the hundreds of miles per hour. The temperature drops like to negative 100. It's quite an interesting little phenomenon up there. But I digress. I was up in the Twin Mountain region, and we're just going for a little hike. And it's the middle of May, so in New England, everything's not quite green yet, but you're starting to get there. There's trees budding. You've got all the ferns growing. You've got all the little flowers. You know what they say, April showers bring May flowers. And, Mark, you know what May flowers bring, right?
What's that?
Pilgrims.
Oh, I can't believe I fell for that.
I couldn't either. So we're going on this little hike, and like I said, it's just starting to get green. We go up. We're going up. I think it was Mount Hale. I'm pretty sure it wasn't one of the big presidential ones. I wanted to take it easy on the missus. We're doing a nice, easy going hike, and as we're doing this, we don't see a single soul on the whole way up. It was about as remote gets. The trailhead parking lot, it didn't have anyone in there but our little car parked. So we get to the very, very top, and we sit down. We're enjoying the nice sunny day. We're eating our, smashed peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that have been on the bottom of our backpack for the past couple hours.
The best kind.
Yeah, you're telling me, but it was good stuff. And then, as it always happens, it's time to return home. So we turn around, we're going down the trail, and again, haven't seen a soul this whole time. I've got slightly longer legs than the little lady, so I was, I want to say about 30 yards ahead of her on the trail. So I'm going down the trail, and as I get to this left turn, I look into the tree line, and I see what looks like a furry face, and instantly I think, oh man, that's got to be a bear, because it's springtime. It's time for the bears to emerge from their dens, and this time they're trying to fatten up a little bit after sleeping all winter. So when bears come out at that time, they're hungry, and I was concerned that it was a cub. Because just in case you and the listeners don't know, black bears and brown bears, there's a pretty big distinction between the two. If you see a black bear in the wild, all you got to do is yell at it and say some mean words, and it'll just skedaddle into the trees and never bother you again. They're pretty cowardly. And grizzly bears, brown bears, that's a whole different story. I think as the saying goes, it's if it's black, fight back, and if it's brown, lie down and pray that it doesn't have any interest in what's in your back pocket. So at this point, I'm thinking, all right, it's a black bear, but it's a cub. And if you see a cub in the wild, that is the one time in which you have to be scared, because you know what's around baby cubs? Mother bears. And that mother bear will not hesitate to charge at you if it thinks for a second you're anywhere near it. And I felt like I was pretty close to that little furry face. So I turn around, and I am hiking back up the trail at like I don't want to say breakneck, because I've never been known to move very fast. But I was at a very accelerated rate up the mountain. And I get to my wife, and I say, honey, there's a bear down there. So she, her face, the color drains and her face turns to like a white sheet. And I'm just thinking, all right, let's just sit still. I think it might be a baby cub. Just let it go by, and we'll continue down the trail. So we sit there, we stand, and you could practically hear a pin drop except that's not what we heard. What we heard was footsteps in the tree line. And they sounded very distant, and they sounded very, very light, like delicate. Like I couldn't tell if this was a squirrel scampering. I couldn't tell if this was like a person tiptoeing so they don't wake up somebody. It was a very, very light snap of twigs. So I'm looking into the tree line where the sound's coming from, and I'm thinking, I got to make sure I see this thing and make sure it passes before we start walking. And I think I see something furry in the distance. And I'm like, okay, that must be the bear. But Mark, I'm telling you, this thing stood up on two legs and started like running away from us. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen a bear walk on two legs before, because they do. But they waddle, they hobble, they can't go very fast. The only time I've ever seen a bear on two legs is like at a roadside attraction where you see them dancing in tutus or something. But this thing was walking like a bipedal creature, and it had its arms swaying the way I'd be running after I saw that creature. Right.
Did you make out any detail of the face? No snout or flat face?
Unfortunately, I could not. It was about, I want to say 40 yards away, and I just saw like a furry blur and then on 2 feet and then running. Like I couldn't make out any details on the face because it looked like it was facing away from us at that time. And I look over to my wife and I'm like, oh my God, did you see that? And of course she said no. I was like, honey, what were you looking at? I'm over here fighting for our lives. What are you doing?
So you're saying you did notice some type of arm swing?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because I was thinking about like how a bear would move, and they just like waddle and have their arms in front of them. But this thing, it was arms to the side and like swaying in alternate ways the way a person would when they run. So, right foot up, left arm back, and vice versa. And I only saw probably like 3 or 4 steps before it disappeared into the tree line.
Did you notice any type of smell, or did you hear any vocalizations?
So I couldn't. So spring is a interesting time. Like you get a very strong smell of like soil and sometimes rain, and that's all I was smelling at that time. Like the trail was beautiful. It was really just like a perfect spring day, but I couldn't identify any sounds, and it's really frustrating that I couldn't. Like, the only thing I saw was that brief kind of arm sway, and then that initial furry face at the beginning. And right. like I said before, I am a believer, but I like to make sure that I'm not just attributing everything to Sasquatch. I don't want to just be one of those guys that's like, oh, this must be it. Like I want to think of the alternative explanations, but man, the way I saw that thing stand up on 2 legs, like a bear does not do that. There are no animals I know of that can stand that quickly and just run the way like a runner on a track and field can just suddenly bolt up.
Right, and left the area, I'm assuming, at a pretty good pace.
Right.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Did you hear any tree breaks or any limbs breaking?
Oh, yeah, definitely as it was running away. So when it was like trying to sneak past us, Splinter Cell style, I could hear like the little twig snapping. But the second it decided that it was time to book it, yeah, we definitely heard some like rustling of branches and at least one snap from the trees that it ran through.
And how far away do you think it was?
I want to say about 40 yards. Like it's difficult to say when you're looking into like a dense wood line, but just from the clearing, the little bit of the space I could see, I'd say about 40 yards.
So it was fairly close then.
Right. And
what did your wife think about what you had described to her?
Oh, she thinks it was just a bear. Like she didn't see what I saw. Like she just initially heard the description of the bear, and her mind was just bear, bear, bear. And on that note, the second we heard it, like, skedaddle, she was like, we got to get out of here, which was very, very frustrating to me because I wanted to at least, look into the tree line and see if there were any prints or any broken branches I could look at. But she was just she was scared. I'm not going to, harp on her. She was very, very frightened by that because she had never seen like any large, dangerous animals like that out in the woods. We haven't even seen a moose, and just to let you know, seeing a moose is almost as scary as seeing a bear, if not more.
Right, as expected. And there's quite a bit of wildlife in that area as well, but that's not going to be, like you said, bears waddle. Their front legs, if they are standing on two legs, they're bent in the front. It's like, just like they're straight out in front of them. And of course they have a snout and ears on top of their head. So quite a bit of difference when a lot of people do say, hey, you probably saw a bear or that was more than likely, a bear or something else. But
that's actually a really good point you just raised too, because like you said, bears have the two adorable little ears on the top of the head, and this thing did not. I only saw the back, and I did not see those little nubs on either side of the head.
Right. That New Hampshire is a small state, of course, but the White Mountains and the whole state, and I've noticed on the BFRO website, there's quite a bit of activity in New Hampshire, especially in the White Mountains. And I'm not familiar do you know where Hillsborough County is?
Yes, Hillsborough County is pretty much the southern part of New Hampshire.
Okay, I had read a report. It happened about maybe 10 years ago, and this guy had I think it was close to, if I remember right, Russell Abbott State Forest, I believe is what it was called. Mm-hmm. And the closest towns were maybe Greenville or Mason or something of that sort. But he had encounters going on for about a year or two, and anything from smell to vocalizations to actual, sightings. And, for a lot of people that, like you said, don't know that area or not, like we had talked about earlier, are not familiar with New Hampshire, it's heavily forested and rugged terrain, as you know firsthand.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, all of New England, there are so many remote little pockets of forest that just have not been touched by the tools of man. And that's why I just love New England so much, because you can find yourself in just so many deep forests where, miles and miles around, you just won't see another person. And I wouldn't identify myself as a misanthrope, but I sometimes like getting away from people.
Right. And I'm sure you can do that in New Hampshire.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. That's definitely a bucket list for sure, to get up that way and check out that beautiful area that you had mentioned. Jeb, I appreciate you coming on the show and taking time to tell everybody about your experience and what you guys do at Squatch Hunters International, and looking forward to, what you got going on in the future.
Yeah, we've got lots of plans. We've got lots of places we're looking to go to internationally. I am, of course, going to Canada at least once this summer. I want to see what we have to the Great White North. But we do have lots of plans, and I really do appreciate you, Mark, having me on here and giving me the opportunity to tell you at least a little bit about the experiences I've had, and also tell you about the project and Squatch Hunters International. So I'd like to just thank you personally for that. And then just real quick, we are pretty much everywhere where you can find people on social media. So we are on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, even Blue Sky. We are WW Squatch Hunter, so Worldwide Squatch Hunter, for those who remember what WWW stands for. So WW Squatch Hunter, we'd be happy to have you along. Just, keep on squatching.
Absolutely. I will get your links for your social media, and for everybody listening, they'll be down in the description for you to check out Jeb and the other members of Squatch Hunters International and find out what they're doing. Typically, before we get done, I have a rapid Q&A with my guest. 3 questions. First thing that comes to the top of your head. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Favorite TV show related to your subject?
Monster Hunters.
Monster Hunters, gotcha.
I'm sorry,
okay.
No, Mountain Monsters. Mountain Monsters, how embarrassing.
Okay, yeah. Mountain Monsters. That would be Jeff and Buck and Huckleberry.
That's right, yeah.
Those guys, yeah.
I love the scheming, the planning. We got to build this trap. Like, I like that they're out there at night. They're really just, in it deep. I find that just so much fun.
Right. That's
like, I love the camaraderie, just the teamwork. That's another thing I love about Squatch Hunters International is it gives us an opportunity to just be together and pursue something that we all enjoy.
Absolutely. Good show. That's one of my favorites as well. All right. Number 2, favorite movie.
Oh man. Have you seen oh man, I can't even think of that one quick. You're gonna have to edit this one out and make it sound like I'm a little sharper than I actually am.
I can let you think about that one, and I can skip to number 3.
Sure, let's do that.
All right. Favorite hobby outside of squatching?
Fishing. When I'm
awesome.
There's so many beautiful rivers here in New England. There's so many lakes and ponds, and I find myself either waist deep in water fly fishing or just on the bank doing the traditional spin reel fishing. But I just love, I think trout are the most beautiful little creatures out there. A brook trout has these just gorgeous orange fins and these nice, beautiful spots. It looks like, God himself took a paintbrush and went to these things and made a nice pattern on it. So that's
absolutely. Trouts are, rainbow, brook, absolutely. Beautiful fish.
That's
no doubt. But yep. Well, good deal. Well, everybody listening, I appreciate you tuning in. Like I said before, if you've had an encounter, an experience, or something unexplainable, shoot me an email with your contact information at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com. Jeb, I appreciate it. Let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
And see what's going on each other's path. And I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. Would love for you to meet some of the team and also stay in touch. So you have a good one, Mark, and let's keep on squatching together.
Yes. Everybody, thank you for listening, and God bless.